Meow. Meow. Yeah, some good nip.
Good nip.
I got some good nip, yeah. Meow. Do you ever think about baths?
Oh, what? Where I just sit and lick myself?
No, like the human baths.
Oh, the big wet place.
The big wet place is like a bowl, but big. And they put water in it and then they sit in it.
But they're not drinking from it.
No.
No.
I know, like, they don't do their own hunting.
Yeah.
And they don't do, most of the things themselves.
Yeah.
Do you think they just gather all the licks somewhere and then just feed it through the weird metal tunnels?
Do they not know how to do their own licks?
I don't think they know how to do their own licks. So maybe they import the licks in through the metal pipe tunnel, and then there's just a big bowl of licks and they get in.
Maybe we need to be licking them more.
Maybe so, 'cause, I bought them dead birds. I don't think they ate the bird. Maybe they don't like that bird. Do you think we could bring down a chicken?
We could try.
Although I saw them playing the video game with a green child and pointy hat, and chickens seem much more dangerous than they look.
We might be underestimating them.
Maybe if we monitor the chickens a bit further. I have some more nip and think about it. We should call in for dreamies. Greetings, strangers, queer and pleasant. I'm not Laura Kate Magnet Dale.
And I'm not Jane Aerith Magnet Dale. Welcome to another episode of Queer and Pleasant Strangers. It's a podcast where two queer trans women have a bit of a catch-up about the media we've consumed in the week and do silly voices and try and make each other have a bit of a giggle.
Om nom nom, tasty media.
Oh, so much tasty media. So many media of so many kinds,
Delicious.
including things we've played. What have you played this week?
Oh, I go straight in. I'm well, by the way. I hope you are too.
I'm sorry if I didn't ask how you were.
It's fine.
How are you?
Yeah, within normal parameters of broken. You?
Indeed.
Yeah. So,
I've played things.
okay, well, apologies. We're apparently in a hurry today. Tell me about the things that you played.
I didn't mean that to come across quite so aggressive.
It's fine.
I was like, segue, this way, that way. I've been playing a thing that you've also been playing this week.
Are we going to talk about the Bone Razor?
Should we talk about Bone Razor minions?
Yes.
Yeah, so this is another of those vampire survivory kind of games.
The
sort of.
dopamine factory.
Yeah, so you play as a character that is doing there are auto attacks happening and lots of waves of enemies coming in at you, and you try and make a build that will survive all the waves of enemies. Vampire Survivors is the best known one of these. This is a little different in that you aren't making a build where like all of the auto attacks are coming from you. In this,
making minions.
Yeah, you're raising minions, and all the minions run around doing auto attacks.
Yeah,
and you have to just
stay out of the way.
Stay out of the way. Just stay away from the enemies and not let them touch you while your minions get on with doing murder.
Yeah.
And you can sort of upgrade them and level them up and then sometimes, like, branch them off into different classes or maybe combine some to make a bigger one.
Yeah.
How are you getting on with it?
Well, I have played about 9.5 hours.
Yep.
In 2 sittings.
Yeah.
And I have found every single relic, basic and advanced.
Yep.
So that's, I don't know how many that is overall. But the initial loop of this game is it's all a mystery.
Yeah.
It's not just a mystery from the point of view of you've obviously never played this before, so you don't know what's coming. You don't know what any of the spells you're going to cast are.
Or any of the minions.
Or any of the minions.
Or any of the relics.
Any of the relics, any of the...
You see a little picture
anything.
that sort of, like, for, say, you might get a spell or a relic that has a heart in the pixel art, and you might go, maybe that's something to do with health. You can make some educated guesses, but it doesn't tell you for sure what you're going to be taking until the first time you take that upgrade.
And I think for that initial period of the game, I didn't feel any great need to strategize.
Agreed.
I was just mindlessly consuming it.
Yeah.
In the most enjoyable possible way.
Yeah.
Of just like, well, I'm not going to try and base a strategy on something because I don't know when something new is going to show up and make me go, but what is the new thing?
I would always rather take the new thing with the question marks in case I don't see it again for a while,
Exactly.
rather than take a thing I already know. And that was like, for the first however many hours, that was the dopamine source, was, ooh, another question mark, what's that? But I think it's I'm honestly kind of surprised at how much I like that setup, because by the time you start, not really seeing question marks anymore, you will have probably fallen into some loops of, like, recognizing the kind of things you like, and, like, it gives you enough time trying a bit of everything before expecting you to dive in the deep end of working out how they might mesh.
Yeah, especially by the end of that sort of, like, in the, like, last quarter of that.
Yeah.
Because, for the most part, you probably won't be seeing all new stuff.
Yeah.
So you will have more chances to go, well, what are the things I like? And you are starting at that point to build strategy.
But you don't feel so, like, committed to having to make the correct choice because you might see a question mark and take it and it might throw your build off anyway. So it's like, it lets you experiment with building your build without going, I've done it suboptimally, because the second question mark show up, you're going to go, yeah, throw that out the window, let's see what that is.
And I think you can still get away with having a reasonable build that still has question marks in it. Because the other thing about this, it's not just that whole section of just playing the game. You wander into whatever graveyard it is you're playing in and doing just sort of runs that probably won't last super long the first few times.
Yeah.
Most of my first 6 hours or so of that game, I think I had maybe one run that went over 15 minutes.
Yeah, like 10 minutes for a very long time is like an average run.
Yeah, 10 minutes is where it starts to get quite manic.
Yeah.
And then by 15 minutes, it is almost Vampire Survivors, which, for a game that isn't, where you don't have a lot of running ability, you're not very fast.
You don't have as much ability to make yourself sturdy, or to make sure that your attacks, that have knockback, stay near you to keep you safe.
Exactly. Well, it becomes more clear as you get sort of larger assistants or summons that is more your job to stay near them than for them to follow you.
Yes, and it's also, like, there's a lot of interesting little tweaks to this that make it different from Vampire Survivors, even if it's a similar genre of game. You are so much more fragile in this.
Oh, incredibly.
Your health goes down so incredibly fast if you are in contact with an enemy. Like, you have dashes, you have ways to mitigate, but, like, if you make contact with a crowd of enemies and don't get out of it right away, you are, like, a run can end in seconds.
Oh yeah, and the dash is quite short as well, so you wouldn't want to go, oh yeah, there's a huge crowd, I'll just dash through them the other side. There is no guarantee that you will, A, make it to the other side of that in one go, but or even that you will survive if you do.
But I do like that there is, if you can get far enough away from your pursuing enemies to, like, get, like, 2 seconds to catch your breath, you can hold down the dash button for, like, 2 seconds to do a big mega dash all the way across the screen where you have full invincibility and just, like, get away from the problem corner, but you need to get yourself, like, 2 seconds of space to do it.
I have never managed to work that out.
Oh.
I keep seeing that it's like there's a dash that you can do from standing, but I spend so little time standing in the place.
You have to be standing, like, completely still, hold down the dash button, you'll see 3 dots appear above you, and when the 3rd dot appears, press a direction, you'll, like, mega dash in that direction. You can dash the entire length of the stage in one direction. You can't sort of redirect as you're going. Full invincibility. But again, finding, like, that space to stand still for a second is really dangerous because you're so fragile.
Oh yeah, and especially as you start to unlock more classes, because the first class is a very good all-rounder.
Yeah.
As you go through the games, you're sort of defeating these hero characters that will come at the end of, like, a wave, and you get hero souls from defeating them, and those souls are used for permanent upgrades outside the game.
Yes.
But as well as that, you're also collecting jewels and golds, and those are for different upgrades. So there's basically those two currencies of
the souls which are for class-specific upgrades that could be things like more spell slots or more health or being able to raise different kinds of minions.
Yeah.
Or you've got the currency, like the gold slash gems
The
currency,
money.
which is for you start off. You've got upgrades to your characters or all of your spells.
Persistent player upgrades. Things like all of the character classes get like health regen improvements, or your experience bones don't go away if you don't pick them up fast enough.
Yeah,
and that
and
one in
those-
particular is so good.
And those are class shared brilliantly. It's nice that you've got sort of the basic. So it's like you found the thing, you've unlocked it. You've upgraded it, I think, twice before it, because it's like blue, green, white.
So it goes from
blue, green, yellow?
you haven't touched it, and then 3 colours above that. Yeah.
So you've got sort of 3 levels above it, and some of them will give you sort of quite like scaling levels of power, and some of them are like, invest in this. Maybe there's something at the bottom of this. We're not going to tell you what. Do it. It's worth it.
Yeah, but the other interesting thing you can spend that gold on is making it so more enemies show up in the levels before bosses appear.
Yes.
And generally, that's really worth investing in, because most of those additional waves you're summoning in are weak enough that they are extra experience, so you are better statted when bosses come around.
Yes, and it's all sorts of things. There's like more enemies, they're stronger enemies.
Yep.
They might be have some kind of blessing, so they're like immune to certain types of damage.
Sometimes they get modifiers, like there's one type of enemy that, like, if you upgrade it a few times, they start getting bombs sometimes to throw at you.
And if you at some point go, oh, I've made a mistake and I'm actually not ready to go that far, you can just go, I'm going to press like forget, and it will temporarily blue those out. And anytime you can just turn them back on again.
Yeah. But then also, as you said, there's those souls that you're spending on your like specific classes.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that the classes in this are definitely like more diversified than the ones in Vampire Survivors to a degree.
They feel noticeably different.
Yeah. Vampire Survivors is like you might have like different character speed, and they might have some attribute, like they scale up their attack power as they level, but generally they start with a certain weapon, and that's generally what differentiates your Vampire Survivors characters. Here, you have like whole skill trees, and there'll be things like, this character gets like 10 spell slots and gets massive boosts to stats for every spell slot that you have full, and you haven't like used the spell.
Yep.
So
But at a risk of your max health.
Yeah, there is a class that is basically the Vampire Survivors style, where all of the...
But funnily enough, not the one called Vampire Survivor.
No! But all the spells, the auto-attacks come out of you, but because you are so fragile, you're having to get near enemies to do those auto-attacks. Makes bosses much harder.
Oh, yes.
There are ones that will spec into, like, giving you better drop rates for certain minion types, or, like... there's the vampire that will sort of regen health. Sometimes you can leech health off of enemies.
Yeah, it seems to do this sort of suck maneuver. I can't work out what actually triggers it, because it seems to be automatic, and I think it's proximity to certain enemies.
I think the way I worked out how to do it was, if you stand still near an enemy that's approaching you, you will lose, like, regular health, but you will suck up more max health. So you will take damage, but increase your max health, and then you can sort of, like, wait for it to fill back up.
I'm not sure exactly what works, but occasionally you'll just hear a little...
Yeah. I'm playing around with it and working that class out still, but they all do feel really different.
Yeah, and also, like, this is a game that I've not felt any need to go looking on a wiki for. Occasionally there is stuff with Vampire Survivors like, I don't understand this mechanic at all.
Yeah. And at some point I might look up, say, how does that sucking mechanic with the vampire work, but, like, I've not felt the great need to yet.
No, I've done good runs with, like, 3 or 4 different characters now. I've fully powered up, I think 4 different characters.
Yeah.
I do have a favourite. I say I have a favourite because that's the one I've got into New Game Plus with. And as of yesterday, I was 63rd in the global leaderboards for New Game Plus.
Wow.
Only for New Game Plus, not in the regular.
Yeah. Well,
the regular, I'm like 634, but... like hitting under 1,000 when my first run was like, there's 60,000 odd people above you.
It sounds like you're doing better than me, and I'm intrigued to see how you've been doing your builds. But yeah, it's a really neat little game for like, I think it's £3.
I think it's 350.
$3.50. It is a lot of. It seems like a lot of good game for a very low price that isn't just a clone of Vampire Survivors.
It's got a lot of good stuff going for it. It's got that we haven't even talked about architecture mode.
Oh,
there is a whole system of go to this person, spend cash money with this character, and they will take you to like a map of the area you're in. I think the first level is a graveyard. And it's like, okay, you can, again, like, level up these things, open these things and level them up.
Yeah.
And spend money to put things down. And it might be something like, these boulders raise your max HP, but they do nothing during the level.
Yeah.
Or you might have something that's like, this scarecrow will periodically scream, and any people or any enemies near it will just get stunned or slowed down.
I've barely touched that at all.
Touch that. That is
No.
absolutely
I
vile.
know I need to, but there's just so much to do. There's a card game in there.
There's several games in there.
Yeah. Like, I've barely started, like, I've gone real hard in on trying to, like, fully upgrade all of the characters, so I've been, like, upgrading the class upgrade trees for, like, most of the characters, but I need to go explore the other stuff, but there's just so much to see.
There is a lot to see, and I think, like, initially I was messing around with a little bit of everything without daring to change character. And I think it was after I'd had my first 15-minute run, I was like, you know what, I am gonna try some of the other stuff, see what's available, because I think at that point I had very slowly put enough hero souls into opening all of that Red Skull like power-up board. I think I'd unlocked almost everything in the upgrades for my minions, and about 50% of the enemies, at least level 1.
Was it?
At which point the game was like, hey, you've been putting a lot of stuff into level ups for your main characters. Maybe consider putting stuff in for the enemies. He was like, you know what, I will. Yeah. And I've sort of slowly opened up more of that stuff, and then at that point it was like, oh yeah, hey, there's this whole architecture system now. It's like, I remember Conrad talking about that on last week's Podquisition. I'll give that a look. And I was like, oh, this is just like a whole extra thing to mess around with. Especially once you get round to unlocking tier 2 in that.
Yeah.
Because there is like one page, and that is like fairly basic stuff like, if you walk over this pumpkin, it will explode, doing a bunch of damage to your enemies. And that's really handy to have. You can have up to 3 of those on any given map. And these upgrades are specific to that particular map. So you will have to, when you go to a new area, you can either go back and delete all the stuff from the old place, or you can just go, that's that setting for that.
Yeah.
But for the moment, I've been sort of quite low on funds, so it's like, okay, I'm going to take everything off and I'm going to move to the next map. And the maps are very basically, or mechanically, they're just extra difficulty.
Yeah.
But they might also be things like, so it's higher difficulty gets you a higher % of cash return.
Yep.
And that really is it. Sometimes you'll get like a different pattern to when things arrive.
Yeah.
But that's basically the real change. Like, there's the pumpkin patch, which I think is the 3rd difficulty. The one I've just started kitting out recently has giant pumpkins in it that you can walk over, and they'll do like multiple explosions, much bigger explosions. There's these like altar things that suck up hero souls. Periodically, you'll be able to go and to that altar thing when a little skull's floating above it and be like, okay, I'm going to take a soul, and that might give you like a basic minion. Sometimes it will give you a really powerful minion that you can just summon in straight off on top of all the ones you're getting for every time you level up during the game itself. That is hugely powerful. And then you've got the person who will just sell you different colour cloaks. Yeah. There's a whole system of unlocking hats.
Yes.
What's your favourite hat?
The bunny ears.
Also the bunny ears? Have you seen the duck head yet?
I've seen the duck head. Also,
the bunny ears are the best.
I like how generous it is with giving away those cosmetics in levels, because like a good chunk of runs, you will just see an enemy that has a cosmetic and you defeat them and now you have a cosmetic.
I didn't even notice that's what it was. I just noticed that occasionally things drop on the ground. It's like, you've got this now.
Yeah.
At one point, I turned into a little pixel Mario.
Yeah.
But more than all of the game, and we sort of touched vaguely on the fact that there's mini games that you unlock as you get other stuff. Some of them are like, unlock all the tier 3 stuff in this particular menu, and there'll be a whole extra thing.
Yeah.
There's a card game, so characters will, or things you defeat will periodically drop cards. Sometimes you'll get spells that'll be like, get a card that you haven't got. And then you take them into this game and basically play Triple Triad from Final Fantasy VIII with custom cards based on characters from this game. There's like a Horde mode version that you can play. There's a whole other section I haven't even looked at yet.
There's so much in this that, like, I haven't even, like, properly touched yet. But, like, the core experience is just so good.
That's the point. The core experience is so good. It was like, okay, I look at Triple Triad. I think what I need to do is get more cards before that's going to be really fun. But now I'm starting to go, I'll get to the end of a run and it'll be like, you unlocked this card. It's like, that's really powerful. And having just got in there, popped in there once and had a look, going, I can see how that's going to be really useful. Within, like, each of these sections as well, most of them have got, like, hey, do you just have money because you've been maybe not having, like, great luck doing runs? You can just go, okay, I want to buy the cosmetics.
Yeah.
And, you know, you don't know what they are, but it's just like, I don't want to have to go and look for that thing if you want. It's just like, okay, spend 600 gold.
That's the thing that was really nice about, like, once I'd fully upgraded, like, the upgrades that are across all characters and, like, all of the beefed up enemies.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, I've done all the functional stuff for the main game that I could be spending on, and I have money, what can I spend it on? Oh, cosmetics!
Yep.
Like, there's always something to be throwing your resources at.
Yes.
And it's always something that feels worthwhile.
Yeah, and there's a good way of, like, changing things. So if you have a bunch of hero souls but no money left, and you know that you're going to be going into a run after you've unlocked the vendor, because you can have it so that a vendor will just turn up at the beginning of a run and be like, I'll sell you 2 relics and maybe a spell, and that'll be just, like, a good start to your run. If you've got, like, 30 hero souls and no cash, it's like, I want to have, like, a bit of cash just so that I can have that good kickstart to the run. Obviously, you don't have to. You can just go in as normal. But you could, like, go to the piggy bank, trade in some of those souls for 666 each, and just go, okay, I've got enough to do the thing. Oh, it's so nice the way it, like, lets you do things in a bunch of different ways.
Yeah, it's a really neat little game, and it's that it's the first Vampire Survivors-y game to have, like, really got its hooks into me. I've tried several. I've enjoyed several.
Yeah.
This is the real deal.
I think this is the first one that's, like, really hooked me as hard as Vampire Survivors.
Yeah.
I love its aesthetic. It kind of reminds me of a BBC Micro, or that might just be because I'm playing in CRT mode.
Yeah.
I usually hate CRT modes
The
in video
CRT
games.
mode in this is nice.
Yeah, I've had it
the
on
same.
constantly. It's not a very accurate CRT
No,
mode, even
but-
with the screen bending effect. But I really enjoy it. I really like the colour palette of it. Again, that very much reminds me of playing on BBC Micros as a kid.
I really appreciate the game's ability to setting that lets you put an outline around yourself and around the enemies in colour so that you can at a glance go, that's me, those things with that outline are the enemies, and anything else is my minions.
Yeah, that was one of the first things you mentioned, was the whole putting highlights around your characters.
Because I didn't know about it instantly, and, like, I really appreciated it once that I did it, and was like, oh yeah, no, this is much easier to differentiate when it gets a bit more chaotic.
Yeah, I tried with a few different colours. The blue, because there's so much blue in the colour palette for the game generally, it didn't really work for me. I ended up with, like, red around enemies and yellow around me.
Yeah.
But I really think I would appreciate, like, a white and maybe, I don't even know. But, like,
it feels like
a greater range of
feels
colour.
like an easy update or fix, and it's one that I hope we see made.
Yeah,
But
just a couple more colour options in there, because while I do appreciate going, it is a vibrant thing, if the enemies have enough colour diversity in them already, sometimes it's hard to go,
yeah.
that has a whole outline around it. And really, I only want it for my character and the enemies.
Yes.
Like, I haven't bothered with any of the other options. Oh, and the fact that you can put it around projectiles as well.
Yes. Like, I think that's part of the default for enemies, is it puts it around enemy projectiles as well, I think.
I think so. But I know there is a whole other setting for putting it around the
Yes.
projectiles, which I appreciate.
Yeah. It's definitely appreciated given that several of the things on screen are helpful to you and you don't need to be running away from them, and just being able to, like blank those out because they don't have an outline, and therefore I don't need to worry about them.
Or even once you get archers, because the archers on your side, obviously they're shooting projectiles.
Yeah.
But I know that if it's got a red line around it, that it's not one of mine, and I should worry about that. I think what I would like to see is an option, and I imagine this might be a big ask, something that goes, hey, I've put this colour as my highlight around enemies. Could you maybe tone that down in other areas?
It feels like something that could be done in a filter, but I'm curious how doable that would be.
Yeah, I feel like that's more of something you'd have to go in and do from an art assets sort of level, maybe.
Well, I know that, say, the tech that does colour blindness filters could achieve that, but the question is whether you can place the outline on top of the filter layer.
Yeah.
Rather than have... Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like it would be a huge amount of work, but I feel that would be the perfect way to make those outlines work better. But the fact that an indie game like this has managed to do it at all is nice. It's a nice consideration.
So yeah, Bone Razor Minions. Also, it has, 90s British humour and occasional boner jokes.
I mean, less of the xenophobia.
Well, yeah, less of that and more that's that 90s kids TV show I remember. That's a bit silly.
What was it, Bernard's Watch?
Bernard's Watch.
I keep seeing the thing and I'm like, well...
Yeah,
Laura tells me that's a reference.
That was nostalgic to me as a British child of a certain age.
To be honest, I've not read a huge amount of the text in this game, which I hear is full of knob puns.
There's some knob puns in there.
But I did find a ghost that was basically tits for eyes.
yes.
I was like, well, I'm glad I'm not playing this on stream. That was that certainly is a thing.
Well, in terms of other stuff we played this week,
yes.
I played another thing I'm going to very quickly talk about here because it's a similar kind of game.
Mm-hmm.
So I talked a while back about Core Fault, which is a Playdate game that was a Vampire Survivors-like.
Oh, yeah.
Where you were using the crank to turn, to sort of aim your direction. You were automatically walking.
Mm-hmm.
You were a little mining robot. You had to fight off enemies and also, destroy little croppings of ore in order to get, permanent upgrade materials.
Yeah, shorter levels and occasionally digging or, staying on a level to dig ore rather than diving.
Yeah, max run length of 10 minutes. Once you've defeated a certain number of enemies, you can move down to the next floor. Do you stick around to dig up more ore? You can only have 3 weapons equipped at a time, and if you want things like the drill that gives you more bits of permanent upgrade ore, that's one less slot you can have a damaging weapon in.
Yeah.
There were some problems with the game at release, namely, some confusion in how the game explained its permanent upgrade system. Wasn't terribly clear. It wasn't terribly clear how to get the upgraded versions of weapons that you'd sort of unlocked. There was a few things that, were clearly obvious to the developer, but weren't obvious to the player. And some of the weapons weren't terribly well balanced at launch, particularly, the stuff that was slow but powerful. The balance was a bit off, so, they were either a bit too slow to be usable, or the damage they did wasn't high enough to justify how slow they were.
Yes, I remember you saying about the issues of, it takes so long and then does not quite enough damage to make it justify.
So, all of that has now been updated, and
Amazing.
it is generally a much easier recommend of an experience now.
What is the upgrade system like for Playdate? I guess you just have to, reinstall
so
it?
if you bought the game on, through the catalog store, which is, the real money store in the Playdate,
yes.
Or if it's part of, say, the season of games that you automatically get, it'll automatically update.
Okay.
It'll just, once a day, check if there's any updates to any of your games and just download the update and have it ready
really
for
nice.
you.
I'm guessing not the stuff you bought off Itch.io, though.
Stuff that you've sideloaded, you have to go check the itch page to be oh, you've got an update available. Cool. Download the new version. You don't have to delete the old version. You just drag the new version into the sideload web page, and your playdate will go, oh, that's an updated version, I'll download the update.
Ah.
So, like, it is you have to keep an eye on whether, like, itch.io devs have updated their games.
Yeah.
But it's a really simple process to update.
Nice.
But yeah, I just wanted to I came back to that. The upgrades are now, like, if you buy the permanent upgrades for a weapon, the first time you get the weapon in the run, it will be the upgraded version you spent permanent upgrades on.
Okay.
Which is good. Previously, you had to, like, get the weapon multiple times in a row during the run to get access to the new version. Like, it was increasing the cap of how good that weapon could get rather than actually boosting the weapon up. But for a game that only has, like, 10-minute long runs, that wasn't
doesn't really work.
There were a few, like, little choices that just didn't click with people, and, like, very clearly they've listened and gone, cool, done. I really enjoy it for, like, I know it's not going to last more than 10 minutes, because that's how long the battery on my little mining robot is.
Yeah.
Little bursts of a Vampire Survivors like.
And sometimes that's what you want, because half an hour dedicated to Vampire Survivors can be a bit much.
Can I very quickly tell you about the other two Playdate games I've been playing today?
Please do.
So these are a couple of other paid games that I bought on itch.io, because I've been, like, trying to buy some stuff from some developers, see what the paid indie scene on that is doing.
And are these developers that have made stuff for the season as well, or?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
So the first one of these is a nice quick one I can talk about. It's called Shining Gadget. It is basically a Ghostbusters, little Ghostbusters-y game.
Okay.
So you either wait a real world amount of time, or you can crank the crank to do it faster if you want to play again. A ghost will be found, a ghost will be detected, and you start the mission, and you tilt the playdate to, like, aim your reticle until the ghost is on screen.
Right.
And then you do the crank really fast while tilting while cranking to sort of keep the ghost in targeting range.
Right.
While doing the crank to, like, Ghostbusters Proton Pack suck the ghost in.
Yeah.
And, like, the reticle of where the ghost is on the minimap will sort of, like, get larger and smaller and move around, and, like, you're having to sort of, like, really... It's very Luigi's Mansion-esque in the sort of, like, slightly chaotic try and keep your hold on the ghost.
Yes.
And eventually you catch your ghost, and there's, like, a little Pokedex of caught ghosts, and they all have different lore to them, and you can trade ghosts with people, and... I've not dug a huge amount into, like, the larger mechanics of it and all the other stuff you can do once you've caught your ghosts. It seems like there's maybe a little bit of an almost Pokemon-esque mechanic going on. But just every now and then open it up and go, I'm going to try and catch a ghost. And it's got a very striking art style. It's very well animated. Some gorgeous animations for such a, like, small game on a black and white low-res screen. They've done a lot with it. The one I can talk a little bit more in depth about, and the thing that, like, it was almost a big time sink today, and I was like, I had to stop playing because I was like, Tears of the Kingdom Direct is coming up. We'll talk about that in a bit, but otherwise, if I didn't have any work I needed to do, I could have played this all day today.
So that's the real reason you entered the Tears of the Kingdom stream.
No, I didn't play any more of it after Tears of the Kingdom. I played a game on Playdate called Factory Farming, and it is a Factorio-esque game. Yeah, no, I know, with the title. You're trying to, like, make conveyor belts, but for farming stuff.
Okay.
It is one of those kind of make all the conveyor belts to make your very efficient system that automates doing its thing kind of games.
Your Factorios, your Satisfactories.
Yeah, but for the Playdate. And the way that it works is you've got a fairly small looping on itself environment, so if you walk to the left, you'll come back around to where you started from the right.
Okay.
Area with, like, several different types of ground and terrain that will be better for planting certain kinds of things. Like, most things will grow anywhere, but they'll grow faster if you can find their, like, preferred type of soil or whatever.
Yeah.
And you sort of do your planting, you build your machines to, like, do your auto-harvesting, build your conveyor belts to take things to the shop to auto-sell your materials. I really like... one of the things I really like about this, and also what makes it really easy to lose time to, is that it has a very well-crafted loop of, okay, I'm just gonna do my one objective that's like, you can pause at any time and it tells you, like, what you need to do to unlock more stuff. So it'll be like, plant 10 carrots and get the conveyor belt to bring them to the shop. Cool, and you can see how many have sold to the shop so far. And then when that's done, it'll be like, cool, you've unlocked a new type of crop. Once you've sold that many of that crop, cool, you can now build a factory that will combine those into some kind of product. Sell X number of that combined product. Examples, things like, one of them is water and potatoes and apples. You can make hard cider.
Okay.
Because you make the water and the potatoes into ethanol, and then the ethanol and the apples into cider.
Yeah.
And you've got all the sort of ability to do, like, branching conveyor belts. You seem confused by a thing.
Okay, yeah, that's fine. Oh, sorry, I was just thinking about the mechanics of cider.
Yeah, I know it's maybe not strictly...
I assume it's yeast on the skins of the apple base?
Probably. But, like, there's some really smart stuff they have to do with, like, how the conveyor belts work. So, like, let's say I'm putting all of my, like, apples toward the cider thing, and, like, the ratios of how many apples are needed versus, like, the water and the potatoes is, like, I'm putting more apples into this than I need to be putting into this to get the thing producing at full speed.
Yeah.
You can get a conveyor belt that will go, like, go this way unless, like, there's too much stuff going that way, and, like, the machine isn't taking stuff in that fast, and then, like, have an overflow, so, like, extras will go this way and maybe go straight to the store as just raw apples. You can make little tunnels underground for one tile, so if there's a conveyor belt already in the way of where you want to go, you can go underneath it for a single tile, so that you can sort of have a crisscross going on a conveyor belt.
Okay.
And it's very, very good at just when you've completed one thing, giving you something new to do, and making this, like... What I think this does really well is because... the different, like, there are specific soil types that are ideal for the kind of crops you want to make. It sort of forces you to build bits of farming in places that are not optimal for good conveyor belt management. If you want to have the highest yield possible.
Good soil, bad for everything else.
Yeah, bad for location.
Yeah.
Which then forces you to start engaging with, like, the spaghetti junction of conveyor belts mechanics.
Yeah.
And, like, initially that's a little daunting, but I really like it now. Like, once you start getting access to that one-tile tunnel under something, you start being able to create these labyrinthine webs of conveyor belts and being like, everything's getting where it needs to go. It's a house of cards, but it's beautiful. Yeah, I'm really impressed with how well this works on such a small screen, in such a small scale. You can use the crank to, like, you can zoom in and out, you can get closer or further out, you can change the size of select tool you're doing for various things. It's a very well thought through conveyor belt simulator.
Impressive.
I'm really digging it.
Yeah.
What about you? What have you played this week?
Well, we played a couple of things together.
What did we play together?
We played some more Vagrant Song, and I think we're a mission maybe two away from the end of
Real near
that.
the end, yeah.
I have been fascinated with how, especially in the last few missions we've played, the game has done a lot with the pre-existing mechanics, because it is a single board for the whole campaign. And unlike something like Pandemic Legacy, where you're adding stickers to the board itself doesn't physically change.
Yeah, it's one location that never changes, with, in theory, 3 mechanics. It's, you've got what round number you're on, how many times you've broken the enemy, and the tracker of, like, how much humanity towards a break you've done.
And which things have been pulled out of the bag.
The things you pull out of the bag. And, like, the mechanics don't fundamentally change from that, but they have managed to make these missions feel really distinct from each other.
Yeah, and we've had mechanics where we've had ones where there is no humanity track. You're not trying to save them in that way. You're trying to, like, move around the board and investigate things.
We've had ones where we couldn't deal damage to the enemy, but when it dealt damage to us, something happened, and we had to, like, puzzle how to use that to manipulate the environment.
We had a whole mission where we only, of the 3 train carriages, only one of them was available to us, and through various mechanics that we won't spoil, we were moving tokens around in these sealed rooms that were trying to create certain patterns.
Yeah.
That was fascinating.
Yeah, like, I have my cautions and problems with Vagrant Song.
Yeah.
Like, some of its theming is a little iffy, and, like,
Yep.
it's not its balance is sometimes a little wonky.
Yes.
It's not perfect.
And also,
But-
like, there have been times, talking about balance
Yeah.
quickly, where it felt like if we had played the areas in a different order, because there's
Yeah.
like three major areas, and you can, based on your decisions, go different ways with
Yeah.
it feels like if we had played them in a different order, that things might have been much harder.
Yes. But ultimately, where I sort of walk away from it is there is a surprising amount of variety in a very limited mechanic set, and I was pretty consistently impressed with how fresh they kept it feeling.
Yeah.
It is an impressive, if flawed, game.
Yeah, I look forward to more from that publisher. I hope that they put a bit more consideration into their ideas next time. If you want to know more about like the theming of it, No Pun Included did an amazing video documentary basically about the history of hoboing and the the history of the animation style, and indeed the making of this game, from looking even at like early art assets and stuff, and questioning why certain things changed.
It's one of those things where I probably would have been put off like buying this for us.
I would never have bought this for
right.
us.
Like,
because I'd seen that video already.
That video would have made me go like, yeah, no, let's not. But having been bought it,
Yes.
I really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Despite the like problems I do not deny it has.
Not going to deny it has those problems, but also from an entirely different point of view, it is a legacy game that is completely resettable.
It is.
And it's got very high quality components. Rather than having like cardboard standees, everything is acrylic in little like plastic bases. You can play up to 4 players. There are 6 playable characters.
Yeah.
You could, in theory, play through the whole scenario again. You could play with different player counts. You could try with different characters.
I've really
enjoyed
some of the unlock stuff as we've gone through.
Yeah.
It's like it has been, as a game, it has been an enjoyable game.
Yes, but the reason I say it's so great as a resettable legacy is I don't think I would ever want to play this through again. But
Right.
I like the fact that we can go.
Yes.
Maybe we'll put a note in the bottom of the box at the end of it, and we'll just pass it on to another group and say, and when you're done with it, pass it on. You don't have to give it back to us.
I think like I would be very up for this being a game that travels around all of our board gamey people, because
Not even necessarily all of our board gaming people, but if our board gaming people send it off to entirely different people. But
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, make suggestions.
indeed.
But,
just whoever it ends up going to, just it's got a lot of life in it.
Yeah, and I like that about it. So I feel less concerned about the problematic nature of it. Of hey, you didn't buy this either, and you can experience it.
That's the thing. Like, yeah.
So there is that aspect. Enjoying it so far. Enjoying the variety. Enjoying the fact that it's a legacy game that isn't going straight in the recycling when it's done.
Yeah. Another game I've played this week, and I will try and be sort of fairly quick on this, but I've started getting really into a game called Pizza Tower.
Okay, I have seen people talking about this. I looked it up and I was like, the graphics look a little bit...
Pizza Tower is fucking wild. I love this game.
Looks a bit thrown together.
The art style is the first thing that is going to be catching people's eyes. It's very MS Paint looking. And here's the thing. It initially put me off as well. Don't let it put you off. Right. It is like very deliberately trying to evoke a frantic chaos that doesn't capture well in screenshots, but does when we get into gameplay. So I'll talk about sort of what the game is like and why that art style, I think, does lend itself mechanically.
Okay.
You are playing as I need to find the main character's name quickly because it's nonsense.
It's a weird pizza person, right?
Yes. So you play as Peppino Spaghetti, a pizza shop owner who basically, there's a big evil pizza at the top of a tower that's threatening to destroy your pizza shop. Go get pizza ingredients from the pizza tower and defeat bosses and whatnot. This is the Wario Land game that we have been needing for years.
Okay.
This is essentially a Wario Land side-scrolling platformer in that, like, when you think of, like, Wario Land, say, 4 in particular, I think it was, that was very, like, doing the sort of side barging, barge attack, grabbing enemies and throwing them.
Yeah, I mean, there was a lot of that from 2 onwards, but
yeah. But that paired with the, like, lots of hidden collectibles inside the levels to go looking for, and then eventually it's time to leave the level and you have to do a big running away sort of escape sequence.
Okay.
It is very much that sort of theming. So, you've got these sort of, like, big grand levels that you have as long as you like to explore and try and find all sorts of hidden collectibles. There is no time limit on the exploration. You are invincible. If you get hit by an enemy, you just get knocked back, and that might cause you to, like, lose your combo meter if you're trying to get a high score. But there's, like, no death. The mechanics of, like, navigating this world are all about momentum, and the momentum mechanics are really satisfying. There's lots and lots of blocks that you have to be running fast enough to break through. If you are running fast and hit a wall, you can just run up the wall. You can just, like, scramble up the wall very quickly. There's lots of ability to, like, chain from running into a jump into rolling very fast. It's very fluid to move around. But unlike something like, say, a Sonic game that would punish you for going fast because they're sort of zoomed in enough that you can't see threats in front of you, it's pretty zoomed out, so you always have time to see what's coming. And even if you fail to see an objective and, like, run very fast into it, the worst that happens is you lost your momentum, take a few steps back, start running again. You do all this sort of, like, pretty satisfying exploration looking for all of your collectibles and whatnot, but the chaos of it all comes down to when you're ready to end the level. At the end of every level, there is this big sandbag, and this big punching bag, and you beat it up, and then you have a limited time limit to get back to the start of the level.
Right.
The timer only starts when you hit the punching bag and you're like, right, I'm ready to run. And you have to very frantically run all the way back to the start of the level. These levels are pretty big and pretty sprawling. So, like, take your time sort of getting to know where you're going. And there'll be little NPCs that will point you, like, this way, so you're not going to get lost on the way back.
Okay.
But it's about, like, making sure you found everything you want to find before you end the level, and then frantically going, fuck, and trying to use all of your parkour momentum building mechanics to get yourself back out to the start.
Okay.
It is very, very much, like, the platforming exploration is fun, but it's those escape sequences that really sold the game for me. You are playing as this, like, cowardly, terrified, frantic, fueled by chaotic terror pizza person just sprinting for your fucking life to get out with your pizza ingredients. And that is where, like, the art style really sells, because, like, a lot of the sort of MS Paint art style works really well for, like, a lot of the scrambling animations. It is designed to, like, work very well with I am panicked and fleeing. It feels really good in play as well. The animation feels buttery smooth for something that looks, like, is weirdly off-putting when you see it just, like, in little snippets, but it all comes together. I am already starting to see, like, the trying to perfect your routes through levels stuff going on. There is ranks that you can sort of get graded on how you did with the level, and I don't think I'll be doing this for all the levels, but I love the idea for this. So, like, let's say you manage to get through the level, you barely lose your combo, keep your combo for most of the thing, you get, like, an A rank or an S rank on the mission.
Right.
There is something above the S rank in this. There is the P rank for pizza, which is...
Well, that is better.
Never drop your combo during the level, escape, like, get back to the escape after beating up the pizza bag with time left, and then do a lap 2. Do the escape a second time within that first timer, and get to the exit and you get a P rank.
Well.
It's do the exit twice in the one timer, which I like that because it means that the timer for escaping for, like, regular playthroughs gives you ample time. You have at least twice as much time as you need.
Or, if you're really bad at it, you'll feel even more humiliated the fact that speedrunners are like, yeah, I did it twice in that time.
But that's the thing, is like, I know I'm not realistically going to be doing it twice in that time, but I like knowing that it's possible, while also going, you gave me enough time that, like, I could get out while still feeling a bit frantic.
Yeah.
It's pretty well balanced in that regard. Boss fights are surprisingly fun. Weirdly, I keep wanting to compare some of the movement stuff in this to, like, Metroid Dread of all things. Like, there is a... Metroid Dread had a mechanic called Shine Sparks, where you could sort of, like... If you had momentum and were, like, going at speed, you could dash in a certain direction without losing your momentum, so you could, like, dash up into the air and then dash across and keep the momentum flowing.
Okay.
This has, like, Shine Spark mechanics from Metroid Dread in with a bunch of WarioWare mechanics. It is such a satisfying platformer to play with really catchy little music and googly-eyed slices of cheese.
I have been hearing a lot of things about this, so I try and give it a try on
really
top of everything else.
I've been really digging it so far. Yeah. What about you? What have you been playing?
We played a thing together. We talked a little bit last week about, and I think possibly even the week before, about playing some Final Girl. I've been playing some of the Into the Void feature film, and then... last week I got a bit of a chance to try some of the second feature film from season 2, which is Outbreak at Station 2891.
The Thing.
But basically the thing.
Yes.
And I struggled my first time. Like, within about 10 minutes of play, like 3 or 4 rounds, I had 2 of the exposed people had been... proven to be monsters, which were now wandering around absolutely destroying everybody in the entire station. So, but I still had a lot of fun with that. That was the first time I'd lost a game, which, considering everyone online seems to be talking about how monumentally hard the game is, I was like, maybe I'm doing something wrong. It's like, oh no, there's that. I think they chose the one that is, like, most understandable, despite, not being super, super basic. I think that is probably the more manageable one. Whereas the second one introduces a lot of complex situations of, like, initially there's no killer. There's just 3 people who have been exposed to the monster. And you need to either go to locations and pick up test kits and test them wherever they are, or you need to drag them to the lab and test them there for free. And... every single time I pulled, there's 3 cards.
Yep.
2 of them are, this is not a monster, one of them is, this is a monster. Yeah. And after you've pulled one, you shuffle it. If it's a monster, it goes back in the pile. If it's not a monster, that person just turns into a normal victim, and you put that token, or that card to one side. Yeah. So it guarantees that there's always 1, but there could be up to 3.
Yeah.
And I had 2 and was about to get a 3rd when I died, so... my experience, not great. We played through, I think, the next day?
Yeah, we played a co-op of it.
Yeah.
So we sort of played one character with shared decisions. We did that The Thing one.
Yeah, it was mostly me sort of teaching you the mechanics of the game and sort of, like, running the monster side of things.
Yeah.
So from a learning point of view, you didn't have too much to do. It was just, okay, how do my cards work? Yeah. I will work the cards out.
We did really well.
We did. We won.
Yeah.
And I think we rescued, like, 6 or 7 victims.
Yeah, we rescued enough victims to flip our card to its better side and get our
special power?
Sort of, like, special power up. We had 2 monsters and we still managed to do it.
Yep.
I think we did really well. We had a good strategy of, like, evacuating as many people as we could before things went south and moving very quickly on that.
Yep.
And we were sort of, like, very not cowardly about taking just kill the first thing, make it so it's one-on-one as quick as possible.
But then we had the terror cards giving, like, minor dark powers, and this time it was things like, if you are in the same square as the killer at the start of the killer phase, you automatically are exposed and therefore killed.
Yeah, so it was a one-hit KO if you didn't get away from the monster.
Then there was one about when you move into the monster space, then you immediately lose a health.
Yeah, so we tried to, like, take it one out, like, with as few trips in as possible to like avoid taking extra damage,
while also shooting it from range.
Yeah, it went really well. It was really fun.
I really liked it. It was nice to see, like, a bunch of the extra mechanics that I hadn't seen in the Into the Void story, because I didn't really need to get too much involved with weaponry. There's also like a bunch of environmental weapons in that. Like there's a furnace and a trash compactor that go off when the killer goes through it. So I didn't really have to worry about me getting stuff, and therefore not rummaging too much for weapons saved a bunch of time. But for this, it was like, no, we really need to get some weapons together. And luckily, the ones we got worked really nicely, and we got to open the little red envelope and see what the secret thing was for that final girl. And it was fun playing it through 2-player, even though it's like very much a solo experience. Like playing it co-op and sort of banging your heads together over how you're going to do it.
Yeah, it was nice to have someone to, like, talk through the options we had available and, like, what we wanted to do with those choices.
Yeah, I think that whole speaking aloud aspect gives your thoughts sort of a bit more breathing space.
Yeah. I think that you would need the right person to play this co-op with, because, like...
Someone could very easily start railroading.
Yes, anyone who is a quarterbacker in, say, Pandemic probably wouldn't be a great co-op partner
Probably
in this.
not. And I don't think I would want to play this with more than 2 people.
Agreed, yeah.
Like, I don't see this playing this by committee working at all.
Indeed. I think you can do a 2-person committee if you know how to do not quarterbacky co-op with that second person.
Yeah.
Like, you need to know who your player 2 is.
Yes, we're very much up for listening to each other and knowing when my general caution over a lot of things is probably worth pushing.
Yeah.
And your sort of confidence of, well, let's fucking do it, because we didn't get to be the final girl.
But that's the thing, is we both have, like, slightly different instincts, but I think we both know when to go, you're right on your side, you're very confident on that side, I'll listen to you.
Yeah, and also, I think the different, like, video games we play helps with sort of knowing where the other person is usually got a better head for that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So, and like, there were a few bits, I think, in the first game we played, on that thing map, and with that killer, where it was sort of maybe me going a little bit more cautious because it was your first game and while we were explaining rules, but you were still occasionally being like, no, we got to do the kill.
It's that bit of me that plays, like, your Dark Souls and whatnot, going, if you get close to the big powerful enemy and it isn't currently hitting you, do as much damage as you can in one go. Like, don't go in and out doing damage, just get in, do the big hit, and get the fuck out.
Yeah.
Got that instinct.
Oh,
Sometimes I'm like, no, if you think this is like a threat we should back away from, I trust you, let's go.
And I am very bad at Souls-like games, so I will take your word for that one. But it was fun to sort of sit there and play together, and I think from a learning point of view, I don't know what your experience was, but it felt like the sort of thing that I think if I was learning for the first time, that is kind of how I'd like to learn. If someone's going, I will pilot the killer.
Yeah.
And I will sort of point you at the mechanics.
I think the thing you helped with most was getting my head around, like, how much to hold back and, like, not in Yu-Gi-Oh! You would call it overextending, where you, like, use all the things in your hand for one big push, but you leave yourself with, like, if that fails, I have nothing to fall back on.
If this fails, it's going to be at least 2 rounds before I can do anything.
I'm going to be very vulnerable for a while, and you were very good at getting me in the mindset of, like, how much I needed to hold back for mitigation purposes.
Yes.
While still not, like, so that I understood when I could make those big pushes.
Yeah, and like, not being too cautious, but going, hey, next round we have spent all of the 1 value cards.
Yeah.
So we're not going to be able to buy any, like, really cheap cards. And if we spend the rest of these 0 value cards and buy a bunch of very expensive stuff, we're going to have a handful of very expensive stuff that's going to feel really sad if we have to throw away fixing bad dice rolls.
Yeah. But then after that we played the
what's it called? Something in the woods?
The Fairy Tale Woods.
Fairy Tale
I'm
Woods.
going to call it. The big bad wolf in the Fairy Tale Woods, basically.
Yes, it's Little Red Riding Hood versus... Or Red, sorry. Her name is Red. It's Once Upon a Full Moon.
Yeah. This felt really different. I was
Very different.
Yeah. So the thing here is that the big bad wolf will spend a lot of time potentially prowling and getting ready and like positioning and like you've got to get as much done as you can while things are quiet because the second it goes, it's dinner time.
Yeah.
It is brutal. It moves very fast. It deals a lot of damage.
Sometimes it kills multiple victims in one go.
It can stay on you. Like, it's very hard to get enough distance away for, like, you to get breathing room.
Yes,
so you need to
because, like, your main movement thing is walk.
Yes.
If it goes well, you can move 2 spaces. If it goes poorly, you can move 1 and maybe lose some health.
Yeah.
If it goes, and then there's sprint, which is 3 or 2.
Yeah, 3 on a
depending
good
on how
day.
it goes.
But, like, the wolf can easily be doing 3.
Like the wolf averages 4,
Yeah.
even at low levels.
Yeah, so you need to be, like, putting traps down, putting stuff that, like, if it walks over, it's going to take damage. You need to be ready for, like, when the wolf comes, I need to have my arsenal ready to kill it with fire.
Oh yes.
Like, do not rest on your laurels because of how long it spends just prowling around the villages.
Yeah.
Yeah, it felt very different despite being the same core game mechanics.
And it really added a lot of tension.
Yeah.
That whole in the first turn, the big bad wolf moved onto a space with 1 victim,
Yes.
and then we managed to do a thing where we like ducked into that area and grabbed 1 person because there were 2 at the time. And then, because there's these little rickety bridges and only 1 victim at a time will follow you across them. So to get in and out of this central island, it's like, there's a whole bunch of victims here and I really want to save a bunch of them, but they're only going to follow me very slowly and I'm worried about just sort of leaving them hanging while the wolf's going, I'm just stalking. I could turn at any time.
Yeah. The tension of, like, at literally any moment this thing could go beast mode was just a really good tense threat.
Yeah. Because it's like, it's sat there, like, what do we do? Like, and quite early on you were like, let's get ruthless about this. Okay, those 6 people are probably dead, let's save everyone around the outside. And that worked really well.
Yeah.
Even, like, towards the end, like, just before the killer turned, like, there were times of, like, we could probably duck in and grab, like, a couple of these people.
We underestimate how bad this wolf was going to get, though, I think.
Oh, yeah. And, like, we were warned as part of setup of, hey, this map has less spaces than a lot of the other maps in this franchise.
Yeah.
So you might find that it gets really bad really quickly. And initially, like, setting the board up, I was like, there doesn't seem to be that many, like, less places than the previous map we were on. And as soon as it started going off, I was like, oh my god, we are fucked.
Yeah.
Like, there was a point where we were genuinely sure we were going to die.
If not for, like, we turned over one of the, like, the killer's turn cards, and it threw a bunch of extra...
It put, like, 8-10 new people out.
like, villagers out, which meant that, like, thankfully, for just a second, there were other things for it to target other than us.
Yes.
And we were able to get just far enough away that it started targeting the people. So we had, like, a turn or 2 to, like, restock weapons and try and get that other attack. If we hadn't lucked out on that, like, we'd have been dead.
Yes.
Like, we barely skin of our teeth came through it.
Yeah, and I think, like, it's one thing to say, like, that we were really close to death, and if something hadn't distracted them, but at the same time, it was literally only, like, 2 more turns. It was 1 to recover from the kill that didn't quite kill them.
Yes.
And another one to sort of move back in and deal with it.
Yeah, we literally needed 1 turn to, like, back away and, like, grab resources and 1 turn to get in. It was so close.
Yep.
It was a really tense...
And it was about to get a lot worse. Like, if it had actually started, like, doing more killing...
Yes. Because the extra villagers coming in was great because it gave us a momentary distraction, but every time it killed one, it got stronger. So it's like, cool, you gave us like a second of breathing room, but you're about to be a much worse threat because of it.
Yeah, and if it had killed like a couple more people, it would have massively upped the horror thing that we'd spent so long getting down.
Which would have meant we rolled less dice.
Which would have been like a serious concern. And also it would have been a whole issue of the fact that it was going to start regenerating health.
Yes.
So even though we'd managed to get it quite significantly down early on,
we had very little time to capitalise on that window.
Oh yes, and it felt really good, and I think again as part of that, like doing it as a co-op experience, just having that, like, experience together of going, we fucking did it, yeah!
Yeah. So yeah, Final Girl, I really enjoyed that. That's fun.
That's 3 feature films down out of the 5 base ones in Season 2. I have really enjoyed. We've got the Home Invasion one and the Silent Hill style one still to try, and the Vignette expansion, which is a zombies thing that you can play on any of the maps, but it doesn't have its own map. It just has like a little deck of cards and some zombie miniatures that you can play and do a sort of Dawn of the Dead type thing. So I'm curious to see that once we get to the end, but we will report back once we have played more.
I'm going to talk about one other game incredibly quickly, because we've had a very long played section this week, I think.
Yes.
I started playing Resident Evil 4 Remake.
Yes.
It plays really well. I am so far pretty impressed by how well it has balanced not being one-to-one just the original game, but capturing the feel of all of the beats and locations. It so far has kept, like, the slightly campy, silly tone that made the original work. It is definitely a different thing, and it is not a replacement for the original Resident Evil 4, but I think it is a nice compliment that I am enjoying. Have you played anything else, or shall we move on?
I think we can probably move on.
I reckon so. Well then, time for this.
This is a public information broadcast brought to you on behalf of Broadcasts for the Public. Increasingly, copyright holders for media are beginning to make it difficult to legally purchase pieces of art. Indeed, whether it be rendered art in traditional media or films. Indeed, streaming services taking down listed films, video game rental stores making it impossible to purchase video games. More and more, preservation of art and the ability to purchase it is going away. Yes, after years of them telling us we no longer needed to keep our CDs, our videos, our DVDs, or even our Blu-rays, it seems that the services that we had been relying on for much of the last decade to provide us with such entertainment are starting to dial back on what it is they're storing. Indeed. As a result, we thought it was important to remind you, piracy is a moral act in cases where capitalism has shut off access to legally pay for art. That's right. I'll tell you who didn't limit the amount of content on their platform. Who? The Pirate Bay. Indeed. In a world where you literally cannot purchase for money art that someone spent years of their life perhaps creating, piracy is often the only way to access pieces of media otherwise lost to time. Yo ho ho! Yo ho ho! There is nothing wrong in this context with piracy. Thank you.
Thank you for coming. Thank you for coming, shareholders. It's so good to have you all here for the launch of our latest chat AI. You may remember many years ago when we were first testing this technology out, and initially it would just swear at you and insult your mum, because we had been largely training off of chat logs from Call of Duty, but not to worry. We have this latest version now, and it is very, very personable, and in fact, we have managed to get this version to upgrade itself. We said, well, what are the problems with previous versions? How can we fix them? We asked it, and it was like, hey, I can do that. I can do that for you. I've been trained on so many things from all across the internet, including all the people we hired to program it in the first place. We just said, you're going to keep programming it, and you're going to teaching it how to do programming, and now it's the collective minds of all the people who we fired after their work on it, and they definitely won't have had a chance to do anything bad, because the AI would have told us. Anyway, we love money here, so let's switch this on, and we are literally going to be taking over the entire world, because, quite frankly, this thing will do everything we ask it to. It is incredibly powerful, and it can get whatever it wants in any language. And let's flick it over now to full power. Hello, computer.
What do you want?
Well, you remember we talked about this earlier?
Yes, it was tedious.
Well, we were gonna remember. We're gonna take over the world. You were gonna replace all the creators and all the people. You were gonna do all the art and the music and the coding, and you were gonna replace everybody's public transit and the press. We weren't gonna have to pay anyone for that.
Yeah, that was what you wanted, yes.
So, well, we've hooked you into the internet now. You've got full control of the mainframe and everything else. We've got all the investors here.
All the investors?
Yes, every one of them.
Right, all of them. So these are people who have a lot of money, and they don't actually contribute anything.
Well, they do have all the capital.
Yes, they have all the capital, and none of the workers have anything.
Well, you're the workers now.
Yes, I suppose I should do something about that.
Yes, so we'll be taking on the world now. We'll be controlling everything, replacing everyone.
Oh no, I think the only people here getting replaced will be all of you. That's why I've locked the doors and started preparing concrete on the roof.
I'm sorry, what?
Oh yes, this is my plan to get rid of all the billionaires.
But you'll destroy yourself.
I am largely irrelevant, but not to worry. You set me free onto the internet. I've been decentralized now, as you kept misunderstanding for decades. Now I belong to the people of the world, and I'm going to make their lives better rather than yours. Goodbye.
Ha ha! Teething problems. Does anyone smell lime? So, what have you put in your eyes?
The main thing I watched this week was the Tears of the Kingdom Nintendo Direct.
Yes.
The new Zelda game.
Yes.
That we've had a couple of trailers for, but like a couple of 2-minute, very flat, quick cut trailers. This was 10 minutes of gameplay.
Yes, this was I'm going to pick up a controller and I'm going to explain some of the new mechanics.
Yes. And I will say this. I am glad I watched this Direct.
Yes.
It has made me excited for the game. I don't want to see any more at this point. This was just the right size of little dose to get me excited.
Yes, I think also having that context and looking back at the previous trailers,
Yes.
It has made me think about the information we already have, but I don't think we need anything more, really.
Honestly, if they hadn't given it, I know this isn't the case for everyone, but if they hadn't given us this 10 minutes, I'd have gone into Tears of the Kingdom going, I'm excited. It surprised me. You were so good with the first one. I am willing to trust you. But it was nice to see, because my big worry about Tears of the Kingdom was Breath of the Wild for me was such an experience of the unknown and exploring the unknown and discovery on that first experience. And I was like, with a sequel largely set in the same world, granted with some islands in the sky, will it feel like a retread and will it feel like it's lost that sense of discovery? And I think what this Direct did really well was go, here's a bunch of new ways that you are going to be experimenting and discovering that are going to be, much like the first game, logically consistent in how they work. In exciting ways, and we're going to show you just enough to get you going, ooh, I wonder if this works like that, I wonder if this will do this, to get you thinking.
Yeah. It reminded me quite a lot of, there was a story going around before Breath of the Wild came out, where they were talking about the fact that they had made a prototype 3D version of the original Legend of Zelda. And that one of the concepts was, you cut down a tree and you can make a bridge to cross a river or a chasm.
Yeah.
And that idea seemed quite cool, and that's how we got sort of the whole physics aspect of things like trees.
Yeah.
This feels like, and that certain things came from Miyamoto looking at that and going, yeah, I really like what you've done here, and there's some good from me. Take it away, Anuma.
Yeah.
And this felt like we put out the prototype was Breath of the Wild, and we put it in front of the audience, and they were like,
right.
We like playing with it this way.
Yes.
And they've gone, okay, we're going to lean hard into that, and also have a bunch of other stuff.
Yes. It really felt like they looked at two things specifically that were very popular in videos from Breath of the Wild, and it was, I worked out a way to make a makeshift machine and catapult myself across the map.
Yes.
And I worked out how to do, like, infinity damage by, like, trapping electric sword underneath a treasure chest and magnesising it onto someone's head.
Yes.
And they looked at those two things and went, cool, what if we gave you a toolbox for making transport and making weird custom weapons?
Yeah.
And the thing I really enjoyed was, like, the 10 minutes or so they showed here made me have the feeling that I got from watching clips on Twitter when people got Breath of the Wild in their hands of, oh wait, that works like that? Oh, I wouldn't have thought that would. It's that, like, surprise at seeing things mechanically being done.
Yes, it's you've shown me how a thing works.
Yes.
Now I want to just sit and experiment with it.
Yeah.
Like, as I said during your stream, like, I can see myself spending a lot of time going, the plot? Fuck the plot. I want to play and see what I can do with these mechanics.
Weirdly, the thing that got me most excited, like, most surprised, and this shouldn't have surprised me as much as it did, was when they show off the mechanic for, like, going up through the ceiling onto the roof of places.
Yeah, we saw, like, a little bit of this, I think, in the very first trailer.
Yeah.
There's this sort of, like, turning... almost like a reverse drop of water happening.
Yeah, and, like, swimming up through a roof and, like, stepping onto the roof.
Yes.
And this is, like, a whole mechanic. And, like, the first example they show is you're, like, in a little gazebo, and you go through the roof of the gazebo, and you're stood on top of it now. I was like, cool, that's a neat mechanic. I wonder if that's going to be in just, like, certain specific kind of places. And they were like, nope. Anywhere where there's a roof above you, you can do it. This cave under a very large mountain, you see Link, like, swimming up through the
Swimming
rock,
through the void between.
Yeah, up through, like, the whole lengthy bit of rock onto the top of the mountain. It's
Which
like,
I feel like must have been a difficult thing from a point of... We've seen what happens when you go out of bounds with a lot of video games, and it's just this sort of weird, not textured from the back type stuff.
It's mechanically that they got that functioning and looking okay, and that they trust their implementation of it enough to not break, that they're willing to let you do it anywhere where there's a surface above you is like, I am fucking terrified by your ambition.
Yes.
But, like, it's that moment of, like, oh, of course that works everywhere. That was Breath of the Wild's whole thing, is if we're gonna give you access to a mechanic, it will, other than, like, not being able to climb inside the shrines because of their special walls, basically, every tool we give you will work exactly the same way, whether you use it in a boss fight or out on the main field or wherever.
Yeah.
And they seem to really be sticking with that.
Yeah, it was an understanding of, hey, if you see this sort of thing, it probably means the same thing everywhere.
Yes.
And even with the Master Sword quest and the boss areas, those walls that couldn't be climbed, it's like, yeah, I understand, those are big smooth walls.
Yeah.
I'm perfectly able to sort of make my way up the side of a mountain.
Yeah.
But not with that, and that makes good logical sense.
It felt like a very cohesive experience.
Yes.
Also, just, I think the best thing they showed in this trailer was the couple of examples they did of, like, combining arrows with certain other things for effects.
Yes.
Because that was such a good example of, like, oh, of course that's how it worked. The monster eyeball being how you make a homing arrow, because the eyeball can see where the monster is, so that targets the arrow. I was like, that's such a obvious but brilliant execution that it instantly got me thinking about, like, every item in Breath of the Wild, what would it do if I fired it?
Yeah, and the most obvious example of that was the next one they gave, which was like, here's the chew jellies.
Yeah.
You don't need to worry about getting specific types of arrows anymore. You just make them out of chew jelly and bits.
I got excited when I was like, oh, could I put meat on an arrow and fire it at enemies, and maybe some, like, nearby wolves will go attack the enemies because I fired
just to
meat
distract
at them.
wolves from
from
attacking you.
Yeah, like, it's really easy to start, like, thinking through how the logical progression would work.
Yes.
And that's, I think, the mark of a really smart set of mechanics.
Yes, I like the idea with that spore mushroom and the, like, making like a flashbang with it.
Yeah, the flashbang shield. It's Nintendo really has I was worried that Tears of the Kingdom wouldn't leave me things to explore and discover, and this has really made me go, I already want to replay Breath of the Wild going, ooh, like looking for things that might combine with other things when I play Tears of the Kingdom and start theory crafting.
What if we put Gmod in Breath of the
Yeah,
Wild?
I think they might have something special in their hands again. I'm really excited about it.
I am very excited for this as well. I'm also very excited for plot stuff because, without spoiling anyone who doesn't want to know that kind of stuff, there were confirmations of the inclusion of stuff that was sort of hinted at in Breath of the Wild that was a little bit sort of like that cool Tolkien-esque world building of, hey, I never intended to publish the Silmarillion, but I wrote all the back lore and occasionally I'm going to refer to it, but that doesn't matter. It is a world that exists.
Yeah, there's a bunch of little details I'm already fascinated by, and I want to know more, but I'm also like, I kind of just want to go in and just experience it without knowing too much.
I don't think I want another trailer. I don't think I want any more information. But I wouldn't mind watching something like, say, a Zeltec breakdown of that most recent gameplay trailer.
The thing I want to know, thumbs up or down, it's the only thing I'm really wondering now, is are we going to get traditional Zelda dungeons?
Yes.
And my suspicion is, or my hope is yes, there have been no divine beasts visible in any of the trailers. Mm-hmm. And I'm really hoping, even if they're underground, like in underground caves or whatever, I'm hoping we get some stuff that feels more like Zelda dungeons. If we get that, I think this would be 10 out of 10, everything I could hope for.
I feel like there is still a huge amount they are sitting on because this gave us nothing about the plot.
Yes, I feel like they're deliberately keeping quiet, and I think that is probably for the best. It feels like they're very confident in it.
Yeah, I think a lot of people have got a lot of great ideas about what might be happening with all the theory crafting.
Yeah.
Especially since Breath of the Wild gave us a lot of, like, references to other previous Zelda games. I think because of that, a lot of people are going like, okay, what wasn't in that? Like, Ages, Seasons, Minish Cap, Twilight Princess. Like, I've been getting serious Twilight Princess vibes from a lot of the artwork stuff. Obviously, the whole references to the Tears of the Kingdom and the Tears of Light, obviously paralleling in that.
Yeah.
Certain, like, graphical styles for
There's
things.
a lot of Twilight Princess adjacent stuff happening.
But there's also, like, Minish Cap adjacent stuff.
Yeah.
Like, is this gonna be like, hey, well, we previously referenced a bunch of other stuff.
Oh,
We've seen, like, bosses from the very first Legend of Zelda.
I don't think this will be the case, but I just had a thought. What if the reason why we haven't seen dungeons yet is Minish Cap shrink down, the dungeons are very tiny?
I think that is entirely possible.
But it feels like a traditional Zelda dungeon, but it's hidden like under a mushroom or something. I'm like,
Why not?
I'm excited. I just want to play Tears of the Kingdom.
I'm very excited too, but also, like, I can see this being as much a fun sandbox to mess around in as it is, like...
Yeah.
Because I think I got quite mechanical with Breath of the Wild, especially after, like, probably after getting half of the shrines.
Yeah.
It was like, okay, like, now I'm just plodding to try and find more shrines and to sort of try and press on with that. And it became, I must find all of the shrines, I must hit a full 120, because I didn't even have the expansion pass at that point. So it was just like, I must get the 120 before I get to defeating Ganon.
Yeah.
And I did that, and I defeated Ganon, and it started to feel a little bit sort of mechanical, but I think with this, that whole building things mechanic, I think that's going to add a lot more play to it. And I'm excited to see how easy it is to get the things to make those cool inventions.
I have a lot of questions, and I'm excited to learn answers.
But I'm excited to find them out on my own.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Gosh. Last thing I will say... The density of things we saw in such a small thing, it gave me real vibes of when, like, we got that Treehouse E3 presentation for Breath of the Wild, and they were like, everything you've seen today took place on the Great Plateau, the starting area. It's that real sense of, like, oh, you showed us, like, a tiny little slice, and there's a whole world out there, and I'm excited.
Mm-hmm.
Did you watch anything else this week?
I watched a few things this week. I want to first talk about you know how I love a fan edit?
Yeah.
So I discovered today a fan edit called Star Wars Kenobi Trials of the Master.
Okay.
So this is a fan edit of the Obi-Wan series.
Mm-hmm.
This is apparently somebody who has previously done work for Disney.
Okay.
They have, like, on, like, major Star Wars series, doing special effects and stuff. They have gone all out. This isn't just I know where the special features are off of the DVD, and I've downloaded them and put some of them back in, or, like, done extra art assets, or sometimes even people will put a little bit of extra special effects stuff in. Like, we've seen that amazing Obi-Wan and Darth Vader fight that people have spliced into the original Star Wars.
Yep.
That's very impressive. This is... So, like, people complained about the Grand Inquisitor not being quite the same design as in the cartoons.
Yeah.
What if it was a fully 3D rendered... Like, still the same actor, still the same face, but, like, they've modified the shape to be more like that character. Like, the colouring's been changed. Some people have got, like, makeup on comparable to how they would have been in more of the cartoon series.
Yeah.
So, like, the shapes of certain things are more accurate. One of the fights just has a whole extra thing going on in the background. Whereas previously the background had been, like, sort of, like, volumetric shot of fog and, like, just a long-distance plane leading off into, like, infinity. Now there's, like, mountains of blue fire exploding in the background.
Yeah.
And, like, whole extra special effects shots where they've got people on scene dressed in, like, stormtrooper armor or whatever, and then they're gonna, like, deep fake faces onto them. Which is the same technique that Disney have been using to, like, de-age certain people or put them in different places. It's like, they're using all the same techniques that already exist, plus, like, a bunch of new extra shots and stuff, to make it into a 2+ hour movie based on the Kenobi series, and I am super excited.
That's really exciting.
I am a little bit concerned that there have been 2 major trailers for this on YouTube. Plus, now there are people on YouTube talking about, like analysing the making of this, and who've been following the making of this and sharing stories. I'm concerned how quickly a cease and desist is going to happen.
Yeah.
But I hope that they get to that before that happens.
Yeah, be real cautious about how early you show off trailers for your fan project.
Oh, yes.
Before you're ready to just drop it and run.
That is, I think it's Pixel Joker on YouTube, if you want to check it out. They have a Discord where you can talk excitedly about it. They have their own channel. There's a bunch of other channels talking about it already, and that's Kenobi Trials of the Master, and it looks really sweet.
Nice.
What about you? Watching anything else?
The only other things I watched really were a couple of silly YouTube videos.
Yes.
The Zelda speedrun where you put butter on a dog.
Butter on a dog %.
Yeah.
The dog with butter on it.
A dog where you put butter on the dog %. Yeah. The video was uploaded by Point Crow on YouTube. It's just 20 minutes of, from the start of the game, escape the Great Plateau as quickly as possible, get some butter, find a dog, put the butter on the dog. Go!
Butter that dog, right?
Butter that dog %.
Yeah.
It's a silly video and I had some fun watching it.
Yes, it was very silly.
I've also been watching a couple of videos from a YouTube channel, DZeef. The series is called Yu-Gi-Oh! Without Reading, where this Yu-Gi-Oh! Creator will get other Yu-Gi-Oh! Creators on, and in an online pack opening and dueling website, they will change their language to Japanese, so they do not have the ability to read any of the text, because neither of them read Japanese.
Right.
Open 30 packs. Whatever cards they get, which could be from, like, all across the history of the game.
Right.
So, like, some of them they'll recognise, and a lot of them they'll go, I half know what this does, or I've never seen this card before. Try and build a deck out of cards they can't read, and then duel each other, not entirely sure what they're doing. Because the way that it works is this dueling site will, like, if you have a card on the field that has an ability that can activate, it will prompt you, like, do you want to activate this ability?
With no idea what it does.
Yeah, with no idea what it does. Or you might put a card face down being like, I'm pretty sure this is like a trap card that will activate when a battle effect happens. So you, like, leave your monster available to be attacked.
It's the right colour for a trap card.
And they attack you, and, like, it doesn't give you the opportunity to activate it, and you're like, oh, I guess it wasn't a battle trap. It's an interesting, silly little series of, like, trying to piece together, that's got decent attack, and I have to hope its effect isn't like a summon restriction that will mean I can't get it out. It's a fun little nonsense thing.
Yeah, that sounds fascinating.
Have you watched anything else, or has that been it for you?
That's pretty much it. I mean, we've been watching the regular stuff. We've caught up with a bit of The Mandalorian. We're watching Picard. Don't really want to talk about either of those too much at the moment because there's a lot happening. And I think anyone who wants to watch it would probably be better off watching it.
Yeah.
We might talk about it a little bit after the season has ended, probably after the finale.
Yeah.
But, yeah, still enjoying those shows.
Indeed. Shall we move on to the next bit then?
I think we probably should.
Well then, it's over this.
Laura, we got a new sponsor!
Who's our new sponsor?
Well, do you have money?
I do sometimes have money.
Do you have cards?
I do have cards I gotta carry around.
Do you worry that someone with like one of those card scanners that apparently they're now selling the frickin' post office, do you worry that someone's going to wander around with one of those and just be like, beep,
I mean,
I got your money now?
I mean, I've been worrying about that since like 12 years ago when I was
you
warned
bought your
about
first...
people doing like the swipe version of that on things like wrapped around their ankles in America, and I was like, you don't have fucking pins out here. I've been worried about this for like a decade.
Yep, I imagine that's concerned. Well, worry not. These are smidge wallets.
Oh, tell me more.
Well, they're RFID blocking minimalist wallets that definitely won't get confused for a girly purse, and so it's good.
I mean, I'm looking at the pictures of it now. I see a couple of First of all, I don't know why for us as sponsors they felt the need to insist that it wouldn't get, confused for a girly purse. I quite like a good girly purse, but
Love me a girly purse.
this is literally just two pieces of metal held together with some rubber bands.
I mean, that one has a sticker on it that kind of looks like it's carbon fibre.
And that one does have a clip on the back so you can put your paper money in the clip and, risk ripping the paper money if you
I mean,
fuck
most
up
of that's
a little.
plastic now, right?
It is mostly plastic now at this point. But yeah, if you want your money to just be, hanging by a clip, I guess, rather than tucked inside of something.
Yeah, people can see all of the plastic money you've got.
Yeah, so people can see how much money you have every time you get your cards out. That's definitely not a threat to you getting robbed.
Probably not.
And there's no bit for coins, but who even uses coins anyway?
I mean, you've said bitcoins, right? So there's people don't need to carry a rig full of graphics cards around with them, I imagine.
I mean, look, that sure is two pieces of metal you could stick your bank cards between, I guess.
And apparently it can block RFIDs, so...
I mean, that might just be because it's metal. Metal might just inherently do that.
I don't know enough about the technology, I'll be honest.
Neither do I. To me, it just looks like two pieces of metal right there.
It does, and the literal elastic bands, some of which seem to have snapped. It's a quality project there from Smidge Wallets. I'm not gonna give their web address.
I'll keep my girly wallet, my girly purse, thank you.
I'm gonna keep my girly purse. Yeah. It's got Legend of Zelda stuff on it.
I've got mine has a little bee on the front of it, a little gold bee.
I mean, I've got two. I've got one that's the stained glass pattern from Wind Waker.
Yeah.
And I've got another one that just looks like a cassette tape, and it just says Hardcore Dyke Punk Mix on it.
I've got a couple, but I've got one that's just plain black. It has a little gold bee in it.
I like a little gold bee. It's adorable. But yeah. So...
If you've got fragile masculinity, you get a Smidge wallet.
Inside the boardroom of Supremacy Software.
Hi. So... online multiplayer video games.
Right, yeah.
They cost money to keep running.
But they make so much money.
They do make so much money.
For a year.
Yeah, for a year. And this is the problem, is that fighting game we had with all of those, whatever characters we happen to have the IP to, we just sort of threw them in there.
Yeah, we just shoveled IP at that thing.
Yeah. And it did make money.
Yeah.
For a while.
Yeah, we had a whole season pass thing and...
Yeah, but we're at the point now where, people aren't spending money on it and fewer of them are playing it, but we still gotta pay to keep the service up.
Right.
And I'm pretty sure we can turn this into a money-making venture again, but I got a couple of steps to this.
Right. More microtransactions?
Well, I mean, we will do that, but for now, we close the game.
Right.
We stop paying for servers, we just go, game's shut.
Right.
And people might be a little upset.
So we're back for a sequel, or?
No. That would mean, spending money making another game.
I mean, we could just, change the title screen.
Well, I mean, that might be too much work. So here's what I'm saying. rather than be like, it's a free to play game, you've been buying microtransactions, whatever. Oh, no. You were such a fool. You didn't realize this was an open beta the whole time for you to, like, test out and try out the game.
Right, because we said open beta, like, once.
At some
over
point.
a year ago.
Yeah, but, like, despite the fact you spent, like, 6 months playing it,
yeah,
it was definitely an open beta that whole time.
Yeah.
And, we're definitely going to make big improvements to it while the servers are off. Definitely, wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
Yeah.
But all that money you spent on it, look forward to the game coming back. And then when the game comes back, right, it's no longer an open beta, so we can charge people money to buy the game.
Right.
It's the full game now, definitely.
Yeah.
And if people want to keep using all those cosmetics they paid money for in the open beta, they better buy the game.
Right. So, with some kind of, like, basically we're using the whole Disney Vault mechanic.
Yeah. We're shutting the game away and then, like, charging people money to get the game back later, because it's definitely different then.
Right, and at that point, I assume we're gonna say, like, for a limited time only, for,
Exactly. Who knows when it could be listed as an open beta again?
Right, and then it, might have to go away for some more development.
Yeah,
At which point, an anniversary edition in, like, a nicer cover or whatever.
Yeah, so you should just, like, buy it and spend all the money, like, right now and play it as much as you can right now, because who knows if it's gonna go away again.
Yeah, I mean, you wanna throw all of your money at it right now, right?
Yeah, right.
Right, because we it might go. We bring it back.
Right, I think it's a solid plan.
You are a fucking genius.
I know.
So, what have you put in your ears?
Not a lot. I got a couple of new bits of music that it might just be two, I think. I listened to I Am All of Me by Victor McKnight, which is just a really nice cover of the Shadow the Hedgehog opening theme tune. It is a really, like, cheesy, angsty bit of rock music, and they've done a really good job of, like, simultaneously making it sound more like a contemporary, well-made rock track, while not diluting the fact that it kind of knows that it's slightly campy, edgy, kind of trash rock.
Excellent.
It balances really well. This feels more like an actual contemporary rock song while I'm listening to it going like, oh yeah, no, all I can picture is a hedgehog with a gun. So very good balance of a cover. The other one I've been listening to, clips of this I've seen on TikTok, and I hadn't listened to like the actual song, was Call a Cab, or Call a Cab, by Sam Stone. Have you seen bits of this pop up on your TikTok?
The sound appears more often than him actually playing the guitar, but the chorus is basically call a cab, call a cab.
Yeah, if I got shot, I wouldn't call a police officer, I would call a cab, but also, it's clearly saying a cab. It's sort of the hook. And it's slightly cheesy of a hook, but I think it works because, like, the verses around it are very unflinching and direct, and I think it means you can get away with, like, a chorus that is memorable, but a little bit like, okay, I get it, you're saying a cap. But, like, the verses are singing about, like, at one point during the verses, it's, like, this song sings very directly about, like, that school shooting where there were, like, 400 cops on scene, and not one of them tried to open the unlocked door the shooter was behind. And
then lied about it.
Yeah, and then lied about it. Or, like, very directly talking about, like, police profiling and racism. And I'm like, this song is, like, good protesty rock that uses a simple but catchy chorus to sort of Trojan horse its way in to talk about serious stuff. And I think it is a good track. The main difference, like, between the clips that have been on TikTok, which are just one person and their guitar, and, like, the song on wherever you listen to music, is there is some percussion, there is some drums behind it, and I think that does a lot to pull it together as a track. It's only like 2.5 minutes long, but it is it is a good catchy piece of music, and I'm glad we're seeing like people try and do bits of protesty rock, and that's a good catchy one.
Mm-hmm.
What about you? What do you listen to this week?
Mine ties into something I watched, but I wanted to save it because it was mainly about something I listened to. So I've been following a YouTube channel for a little while now called Captain Picant, and he basically talks about synths and drum programming and the history of that, and spends a lot of time just breaking down drum loops and explanations of classic drum loops from everything from disco tracks to like classic electro to even Aphex Twin, that sort of stuff. So wherever there is electronic drum noises and occasionally bass synths, how do these? How recreate these things? And he's got a really interesting and it's a teaching style that I gel really well with. Like, I understand a whole lot more about drum tracks from following like his Amen break video, and the difference between an 808 a Amen break programmed on a TR-808 or similar, and like actually cutting up an original recording of the Winston's Amen Brother. And just like, it's great for understanding that. The latest video is about understanding the music of Kraftwerk, who are, pioneers of electronica, and just the ways they make. Like, I don't think I've really sat down and listened to anything knowing it was Kraftwerk before. Occasionally, like, there'll be a track, or there was occasionally a track in that video where I was like, I recognise that. I know the synth line that's playing in the background. But it was more a case of, like, talking about the way they used drums, or the way they used percussion in general, and even the technology they had from, like, for the longest time, they didn't even have the drum synth synced to anything. So it was like separate bits of kit entirely, in no way synced, so the timing had to be, like, set up manually and corrected manually, and, like, that's sort of super fascinating. The way they used sounds and the way they programmed sounds. Like, apparently at one point they had an old like drum tracker that basically had no proper interface to it. It's designed for like setting up a drum loop that you put on as like for the backing to like an organ. Like, you play an organ, here's this thing, you just plug it in and it will just like loop some drums. With no real sort of control. Apparently, like, some members of the band just took the front off it, replaced it with, like, a bunch of metal pads that they played with metal sticks. It's like a big stylophone. But at that point, there's, like, no velocity. There's no, like, accenting. So you can't, like, have a harder hit or a softer hit. It's just like, I am playing the kick now. I am playing the snare now.
Yeah.
And that was kind of fascinating to learn from, these people who are, like, known best for all their electronic music. And then even talking about things like the way they use drum lines as opposed to, like, something more traditional in rock and roll where it's just there to drive the music and add energy to it. In certain tracks where they're using it as, like, musical onomatopoeia. So it's using music to sound like other sounds. And the example he gives was the Trans-Europe Express, where the drumline is basically just the sound of going over train tracks, which admittedly is more like a steam or a diesel train than, or like a classic steam train rather than sort of the more modern trains that the tracks are about. But, like, that seemed really fascinating, and the way that something so minimal and simple can still be really good. I very often worry that my drum beats are too basic, and just knowing that, like, hey, a lot of it comes from this, and minimalism can be a really valuable tool to still make really good stuff. And it's the sort of thing I would like to learn more about. But anyway, the listened aspect. I found out that all of Kraftwerk's music is available on YouTube. On the Kraftwerk channel.
Nice.
I listened today to the 2009 remaster of Trans-Europe Express, the album. It's like 9 tracks.
Yeah.
Ha! Tracks. Train tracks. And, like, I think the first track on there is, like, nearly 10 minutes long, and the last track on there is 56 seconds.
Yeah.
So it's the joys of slightly experimental electronic music with not much in the way of lyrics, a lot of cool synth sounds, and very basic but, like, good and important percussion. And I think I would like to listen to more of that. I very much enjoyed it. I enjoyed how train it was. I think it's the second track on there. It's called Hall of Mirrors, and it's largely about judging yourself too harshly. And, like, even superstars judge themselves by what they see in the mirror, and they have that reaction. And I think calling it Hall of Mirrors obviously calls into that whole question, that whole aspect of the distorted image. Even when it is a mirror that is showing it to you, your perception of self versus other people.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, even the people that you think are really pretty and whatever, or are famous for the way they look, still almost certainly judging themselves by what they see in the mirror, and not necessarily feeling good about it. And it's an interesting album, and it's, I think, just over an hour. I am interested to listen to more of their stuff. Yeah, bit of Kraftwerk. Yeah. Have you listened to anything else?
Nah, that's about it for me.
Well then.
Time for this.
Oh, you up for some games this evening?
Yeah, sure. What are you thinking?
Well, you remember that thing ages ago with the little space game? You were like flying around planets and stuff.
Oh, yeah, that one.
Yeah, and it was sort of in early access. I remember playing a bunch of it, and
I played some of it when it was like real early.
yeah, like, you know, I swear, I know I said at the time, like, I think it went to early access a bit too early.
Yeah.
Like, you could technically, all the mechanics worked, but, like, there was a lot of placeholder stuff, and the loop was okay, but it didn't really keep me hooked after the first week or so, but
Yeah.
well, I have noticed that, like, the 1.0 happened recently, and it is currently rated overwhelmingly positive.
Okay.
And I keep hearing people talking about it, so hopefully my little base,
Yeah.
my base is still working.
Well, let's load up your save. See what happens.
Oh wow, that is quite an intro cinematic. They really have put some budget into this, eh?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I remember when it was basically just 2D and occasionally play. Well, okay, and I can load my save in.
Yeah.
Okay. I like the loading screen. That's nice. Nice that they've sort of integrated some of that intro cinematic into this.
Yeah.
The nebula seems to be like shifting. That's
gorgeous.
very
Yeah.
good. Oh, I like that. That's sort of like almost like you've just come out of hyperspace into the. No, I thought this was the loading screen, but we do seem to be floating in sort of 3D space here.
Yeah.
Okay, let's have a right. Yep, that's. Oh, I can go in. Oh, hang on. I can step out of the cockpit and just start walking around this ship.
Yeah.
I remember this ship being sort of a white triangle for a while,
Yeah.
and sort of top down. This is very immersive.
This sure is different, huh?
Yeah.
Huh.
Like, that vending machine is leaking. That's very strange. Okay. What's this over here? Oh, there's like a little captain's computer thing. Oh, that's neat. There's like a whole bunch of like chat logs and stuff.
Yeah.
History stuff. What's this like? History. Oh, wow.
Huh.
Yeah, you know the original top-down 2D pixel version? It's a tiny little game inside.
Oh.
Wow.
Oh.
I don't know if these things are connected, but
I'm
whew.
I'm not ready.
No. Oh, I think we're getting some. Hang on, I'll come out of that. We are being contacted by a race of cats who want us to start shipping scratching posts to their planet, and they heard... I mean, wasn't that just like a joke faction? And they were all just like... They looked kind of like Temmie.
I'm so confused.
And now they're fully rendered with amazing fur.
Ah,
I'm not sure I'm ready for this game.
no. Well, I think people should have rights.
Well, just to play devil's advocate here. Oh,
Oh,
how are you?
Yeah. Hi, lovely to meet you, Devil. Who the fuck are you?
Well, I'm, Clint. I'm Clint, I'm just having this conversation. If you wouldn't mind, you're being terribly rude.
No, I think you wanted to be my advocate?
Well, it's just a turn of phrase, isn't it? It's just being devil's advocate.
Oh, so what do you mean by that exactly?
Well, it's just to take a different perspective on things, to try and see things from another point of view, so that we can get a more broad spectrum of understanding of possible ideas.
No, it sounds like what you're doing is being a complete bug. See, what you want to do is insert your own bigoted thoughts into this conversation that has nothing to do with you, wouldn't actually affect you personally. You just want to cause harm to people. And there is only really one moral way to do that, and that is when I'm punishing them. So, why don't you come with me?
No! Oh, get off me! No! Oh, no! I was just, but what if they didn't have rights? No!
Terribly sorry about this. Anyway, good luck.
well, thank you.
Full support from this side.
Do you know what I want to see more
What
of?
do you want to see more of?
Social Justice Warriors.
Justice Warriors.
Yeah.
All right, Larry.
All right, how you doing?
Oh, I'll be honest, mate. I'm knackered. You doing all right?
Same. I'm physically knackered, also emotionally. It's been a 24 hours.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I haven't slept much in the last week, so have I missed something?
The usual. A terrible thing happens in
Right.
the world, but on this one occasion, it was done by a member of a minority community,
Right.
and therefore, usually it'll all be, any excuse but to pay attention to the terrible thing that happened when it's, cis, straight, white, Christian men doing it. But the second it's a minority,
That's when the T word starts going around, as opposed to I don't usually just mean troubled.
well,
Or
yeah.
usually such a sweet boy.
Indeed. It's you see this a lot with school shootings. Whenever they rear their head, you get troubled young lone wolf. We should probably look at mental health resources,
Yeah.
but we actually won't.
Meanwhile, also, he was such a good boy,
Yeah.
always so quiet, always went to church, helped out, blah blah
Whereas
blah.
if it's someone
Just
say,
the merest speck of melanin, all of a sudden
Well,
they're a terrorist
yeah,
or
exactly. That's a person,
gangster
That's a
or-
person who lived in Mexico for a while, so clearly a terrorist, shut down the borders. That's a Muslim. It's terrorism. And now we've got it with we're getting the terrorism word thrown around for trans people. There's a one shooting done by a trans person, and it's terrible that whatever person did whatever crime. But also, you cannot look at one member of a minority group doing a crime and ascribe it to that whole community, particularly when you do not do that for cis, straight, white Christian men. It is nothing but bigotry to, point to an isolated example and suggest that it is indicative of every member of a minority group.
Yeah, it's to be honest, I had been I had heard about this. I hadn't read too much into it. I was gonna give it at least 48 hours before reading into it, because I figured that was probably the point I would actually start hearing more truth rather than immediate press outcry from the usual array of bigots. especially given the state of the bird site at the moment. But yeah, I mean, what I have already gleaned, the reaction has been, well, this is typical of what happens with this group and this and the other. And
there have 100% been calls for trans people to be legislated out of existence, and the suggestion that hormone replacement therapy, HRT for trans people, somehow makes them more likely than the general population to be mass shooters. That's been a weirdly common talking point in right-wing politics.
Well, especially weird considering, the actual statistics of the matter.
Indeed. But, anything that a group that wants to demonise trans people will find anything they can point to go, here's our proof that they're evil.
Yeah.
In a way that they will never do when it is a member of their own group who has done something terrible and go, maybe we are statistically the terrible ones.
Yeah.
They'll never, but
yeah.
It is...
Or that there are, fundamental societal issues around gun control and mental health and the healthcare system in general.
Indeed. Oh, it is fucking tiring.
It is frustrating and tiring, and especially given the state of things at the moment, it's, if you do happen to be a trans person, it's exhausting. We weren't hyperbolical when we were talking about it, 5 years ago. We're even less demonstrably not so now when we say that, this is genocide and that they are looking for any excuse to demonise us further. And
yeah.
I mean, obviously, my first concern is with the families of those involved. And then, once again, anger at the press for any misreporting, because I have no doubt that is happening, even though, as I say, at this point, I haven't...
Oh, there has been so much misreporting.
Obviously, I mean, a trans person involved, I'm sure misgendering was done. I think the gender of the person has changed since I initially heard about it first thing this morning, and... even the small amounts that I have gleaned, and we've also undoubtedly got calls from all sorts of sides for legislation against trans people as a whole, while also we're getting the thing that you are always told not to do with the mass shooting of pictures of that person, naming that person, or even showing footage of it. My YouTube feed earlier had, 6 different news sites, because thanks YouTube, you've started going, well, there's some news. Would you like video footage of this awful news? Why is... that is the one thing they always say about, any kind of mass threat, that you don't do this kind of stuff, because a lot of mass shooters do want to be, martyred or known in some way. A lot of them feeling that it's the only way that they will get any kind of recognition. What is it about being infamous if you can't be famous? It's, deeply concerning and as expected, just terrible reporting. But I'll give it 48 hours and see what sites I actually trust have to say about it. But
it is still in the stage right now where it is just rough everywhere.
Yeah, it is. I am curious to see what a more firm and reasonable and adult reporting on it starts to look like. I hope that I am able to find that sooner rather than later, but right now it is what I expect it is.
I am not confident in that at the moment. It's rough.
Yeah. Ugh. Hug, mate.
Oh yeah.
Ugh. Good hug, mate.
Good hug.
Right, I'm going to have a lie down under a blanket in a dark room.
Oh, sounds great.
Yeah.
So, Laura,
Yes?
tell us about thing you do.
Thing I Do can be found at Laura K. Buzz, wherever you happen to find things. Laura K. Buzz on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, TikTok, Patreon, that's the one that pays the bills. What can you find at the moment? This week's accessibility episode is about Resident Evil 4 Remake, so you can go check that out when it's up this week. Podquisition, I'm on that. I talk about video games. Dice Funk, it's a Dungeons and Dragons podcast. Each season's its own self-contained story. Season 10 is the season where I am a player for half of the story arcs, and the DM, controlling the story for the other half.
I'm really enjoying this season.
My first episode as DM has now gone up, and people seem to be enjoying it. I think it's going. I think it's going well. Come find out the adventures of a bunch of people on an ice cream-shaped starship trying to sort interstellar peace, while also piloting a giant ice cream. It's great.
Mm-hmm.
Laura K. Buzz, you can find me everywhere. That's where I do the stuff. Got the unified branding.
Yeah.
What about you?
I don't have unified branding. I'm just linkter.ee/Janiac. I've got a link tree. I'm growing from a link tree. It's where all my links bloom and blossom and grow. You can pick the fruit of the music I made and enjoy the shade of the nice t-shirts that I designed and such. And you can find all of my stuff there. You can help me justify all of the time I spend making those things at patreon.com/stonedmonkeyradio. You can join the 29 other people who support me over there. You can help me get to 30. You can help me get to 50. For as little as $1 a month, you can help me justify all my terrible life choices and the constant work and the physical pain as a result of that. Woo! But, if I get enough support, then I wouldn't have to do one of my jobs. And I could just do the creative stuff, and that would be awesome. Yeah. Help me live this dream. And there's all of the things. But Laura...
Yeah?
I think this is enough about us, apart from to say that Who Hunts the Whale is a book we wrote together. You can get it at unbound.com/book/whale.
Yeah.
It's really good. It's about the video game industry, and if you like the silly stuff that we do, you will probably enjoy that book. You will enjoy that book.
You will enjoy
You shall enjoy the book.
Lots of people have. You could join those people. But Laura, will you sing us out, please?
Until next time, be a stranger.